My name is Daniel, and for the longest time, I believed staying silent kept the peace. It was my strategy, my way of showing love, of avoiding conflict. But I was wrong. My silence didn't keep the peace. It only made her stronger, and it made me disappear a little more each day. This isn't a story about a physical fight. It's about something much quieter, much slower. It's about how words, and the lack of them, can break a person from the inside out. It all started subtly after our first year of marriage. You know, the usual things. Small mood swings, little arguments about who left the dishes out. I thought it was just normal couple stuff, the settling in period everyone talks about. But over time, her tone began to change. Her eyes, when she looked at me, changed. Her entire behavior shifted. It was like watching a familiar landscape slowly morph into something foreign and hostile. One morning, I woke up extra early, wanting to do something nice for her. I decided to make her breakfast. Nothing fancy, just toast and eggs, the way she liked them. I arranged it on a plate and waited for her to come downstairs. When she did, she stopped, looked at the plate, then looked up at me. Her expression was flat. Seriously, is this what you call effort? No thank you. Not even a hint of a smile. Just a wave of cold disappointment. I remember trying to brush it off. Maybe she's just stressed from work, I told myself. But stress doesn't last for years. Stress doesn't systematically tear someone down. Every day slowly turned into a test. A test I never signed up for. A test I didn't even know I was taking. If I came home late from work, even by a few minutes, it wasn't about traffic or a long meeting. It was, you don't care about this marriage. If I tried to sit and rest for 10 minutes after a long day, it wasn't seen as me needing a break. It was, you're so lazy. If I forgot something small from the grocery store, like a carton of milk, it wasn't a simple mistake. It was, you're useless. And the worst part, she said these things with such conviction, like she had every right, as if breaking me down was a normal, acceptable part of our dynamic. I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home, constantly trying to predict her mood, constantly trying to avoid the next verbal jab. The arguments became more frequent, and her words became sharper, more personnel. She started criticizing my job, my friends, my family. It was a slow, deliberate dismantling of everything that made me, me. I started to withdraw, not just from her, but from everyone. I stopped sharing my day because whatever I said was wrong. If I had a good day, I was bragging. If I had a bad day, I was complaining. My silence became my shield. I thought if I didn't give her any ammunition, she couldn't fire. But I was so wrong. My silence was interpreted as guilt, as weakness. It was seen as an admission that her criticisms were valid. I was trying to de-escalate, but in her eyes, I was just proving her right. One night, I came home completely exhausted. My shoulders felt heavy, like I was carrying the weight of the world. My head was spinning. All I wanted to do was sit down and breathe. But before I could even take off my shoes, she shouted from the living room, her voice sharp. "Did you bring the groceries?" I froze. In the chaos of my day, I had forgotten, not on purpose. I was just tired. I walked into the living room and looked at her quietly. I didn't even need to say it. She could see it on my face. Her own face turned sharp, her eyes narrowed. "You can't do even one thing properly. How hard is it to remember a simple list?" Her voice echoed through the house. My chest tightened. It wasn't anger I felt. It was a deep, profound hurt, a pain that settled right in the center of my being. I whispered, I forgot. She rolled her eyes with this dramatic sigh of exasperation. "Of course you did. You forget everything. You're a burden. A burden." That word, it stayed in my mind the entire night. It echoed in the silence. I lay in bed next to her, staring at the dark ceiling. She was sleeping peacefully, breathing softly, while I was wide awake, wondering how the person I had fallen in love with, the woman I had promised to spend my life with, had turned into someone who could make me feel so utterly worthless. How did love become this? How did our home become a battlefield where I was the only one getting wounded? But the real breaking point, the moment the final crack appeared in my already fractured spirit, came a week later. We were at a small family gathering at her cousin's house. Everyone was laughing, talking, enjoying the evening. It felt normal. For a few hours, I almost forgot the tension that lived in our home. And then, out of nowhere, she said it, loudly, for everyone to hear. Someone asked where I was, and she joked, "Daniel, oh, he's basically my second child. Can't handle anything without me." A few people chuckled politely. Some looked away, uncomfortably. And in that moment, I felt something inside me just shatter. It wasn't the joke itself. It was the truth behind it. The fact that she genuinely believed it, and that she felt comfortable enough to announce my perceived incompetence to our family. My humiliation was her punchline. That night, the car ride home was silent, but it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was heavy, suffocating. When we reached home, I expected an apology. Sorry, I went too far. Instead, she didn't even seem to care that she had publicly embarrassed me. She just tossed her keys on the counter and said, "Don't overreact." It was funny. Funny. To her, my pain, my humiliation, was just funny. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized something with terrifying clarity. This wasn't love anymore. This was control. This was emotional cruelty, disguised as normal couple behavior. The mask had slipped, and I finally saw what was underneath. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in a long time, I found my voice. It was quiet, but it was steady. I slowly said, "You don't talk to a partner like that. You talk to a servant like that." For the first time ever, she didn't have a comeback. Her face softened, just for a second. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was surprise. Maybe it was nothing at all. I'll never know. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. If I didn't stand up for myself right then, in that moment, I would lose myself forever. There would be nothing left of the man I used to be. So I went upstairs and packed a small bag. I wasn't leaving the marriage. Not permanently. Not yet. Not yet. I was leaving to give myself space. Space to breathe. Space to remember what it felt like to be a human being, not just an object of criticism. I came back downstairs, bag in hand. I looked her in the eye and told her quietly, "I'm not your child. I'm not your burden. I'm your husband, and I need you to treat me like one. Or one day, you'll lose me." As I walked out the door and the cool night air hit my face, I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel broken. For the first time in years, felt strong. Sometimes, men don't speak up. Not because they're weak, but because they love so much they're willing to absorb the pain to try and save the relationship. They're trying to keep the peace, but there comes a point when your silence stops being a shield and becomes the weapon used against you. You have to choose yourself. And that day, I finally chose me. Thank you for listening.